So it's finally here. A lot of people had been asking me to make a dual blades build. Fortunately enough, this build that I have for you right here, it's a very simple build that you're going to be able to craft from the very start of the game. So if you're still playing throughout the rest of your game, this is a very early game build that it only gets better as soon as you level up. So this is not going to be like one of those amazing endgame sets. We do have planned builds for that, but this is just a general very good build for that. You can start crafting this build as soon as you reach the Volcano boss fight. You can farm the set pieces from there, but also you can get the crafting recipe from the Human Silence side mission as well. So as soon as you find Silence, then you can go do that to get the crafting recipe to take that to the blacksmith. And it's a generally, I am going to give you like the armor set. We'll talk about the armor set. I'm also going to give you the combos that I like to use to deal more damage, although for you to set that up, it actually requires quite a little bit of patience and things that you need to have in mind to maximize the potential of the damage. And unfortunately, that damage is, I wouldn't say that it's always guaranteed. It's always going to be somewhat different based on the inputs and what you're going to be seeing on screen, but we'll talk about that a little later on. We are talking, of course, the Butcher's armor set, which is an amazing armor set for dual blades. So this guy is just going to give you generally a whole bunch of damage increases in a whole bunch of different places. So for example, you have the swift attacks, but you also have damage increase on Howling Blade. That's 10 and 20%. Remember that the swift attack and the Howling Blade, it's a combo that can be interchanged back and forth. If you have watched my guide on this, that's something that you can do. It's just basically XY, 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 and then you can continue adding that damage multiplier from the swift attack and the Howling Blade as well. But not only that, you have flat 15% swift attack damage increase, so the swift attack is being damage multiplied from the damage increase by 15% on that already 10% that's multiplicative that you have from there. So you're also always going to be dealing a whole bunch of damage. Also, you have the chain, which basically you get more stacks in damage every time that you are dealing damage. So you're always stacking and stacking damage every time that you increase your damage. Now we have the Flash Kata as well, which is one of my favorite skills that we're going to talk about in a little while. This is what you're going to be pairing up to increase the damage potential of our brutal attacks, because our brutal attacks are going to deal that much more damage if we use the Flash Kata. Additionally, for my accessories, I'm actually using in here, you can use basically whatever that you would like to be using, but in here I'm using the defector because it gives you Brain Guard Spirit Accumulation. Remember that your dual blades, they scale their damage based on willpower, and willpower gives you more defense when you're blocking. So this is for a blocking kind of playstyle, for a perfect guard or parrying kind of playstyle. That's where the dual blades shine the most. Additionally, I do want to make a little disclaimer. There's always lots of people saying in my videos you should be using jars. Yes, you can use this build as a base, which is already very powerful, as you were able to see on the showcase. You can get this to be even much more stronger. I don't do such a thing because my build videos are aimed for to be as accessible as possible for as many people as possible. So if I'm not using jar hits, it's because maybe a lot of people, maybe you're looking for the jars, maybe a lot of people are not looking for a jar, and I'm not trying to add a handicap to someone that are trying to like replicate the build. So this is a base that you can use to furthermore improve, because yes, jars are very powerful, but you do have to be finding like the 34 jars required for you to have that legendary helm. So that's why I don't include the jars in my builds, but it has to be said that if you are doing so, the builds just get so much broken powerful that way. Moving on to the stats, your main focus is always going to be, if you have watched my build videos, remember that all of the damage increase that we are going to be getting in here more than anything is going to be coming from our flash cutter for the damage increases in percentages that we have for everything. So ideally you would want to be, I am pretty high level in here, but ideally you would want to be leveling up depending on your soft caps. So while you're leveling up, let's say for example that you're still going through the mid game, you're going to reach 30 vitality, 30 endurance, and then 30 willpower. Once you are in 30, 30, and 30, and you have that managed to get that amazing combo, then you are going to reach the hard cap, which is at 60 on 60 vitality, 60 endurance, and 60 willpower as soon as you can. We are not going to be needing strength for this build because this is a lightweight armor, so you're not going to need since this is not heavy armor, we already have an agility, as you can see right in here, so that's how you would be leveling up your character. The most damaging combo that I have for this build that I will showcase to you just right now in a little while, my advice is that you also invest some of the skills into resources for the spirit charges, because the actual most damage that we are going to be dealing, it's going to come from the usage of spirit, like lots and lots and lots of usage of spirit. As a matter of fact, the final attack that we're going to be dealing against exhausted enemies is going to be like the usage of 3 different skills for spirit. So that's crazy. I do advise for you to have this thing right here. As for the skills that we are going to be using for the basic of everything with our weapon, we have the swift attack, we have the howling blade, because remember that we're scaling the damage of our howling blade because of the armor perks that we have in here. Now, Gale is something that it's not needed for this build, but this is one of my favorite ways of maximizing the damage. You're not going to necessarily need the smash, because the smash takes more time, and more often than not this actually uses spirit as well. We're not going to necessarily be needing this. We'll talk about this in a little while when I explain the combos that I am referring to you, but we have the basic Gale in here. What Gale is going to do is that you're going to inflict the injured status on the enemy. Every time that you deal damage to the enemy is going to make you deal that much more damage. If you combine that with Ruthless, basically Ruthless, what this does is that it allows you to perform this flurry of attacks after every input that is going to be using just one spirit, and then it's going to be using stamina, which is why we need so much stamina. And basically this is going to fill out your meter for the actual 10 stacks that you're going to have more damage, and whenever you're using this against an exhausted enemy, that's when you're going to be using the flash kata right in here. If you have the improved on the declaration right in here, this requires for you to have a mastery level 34. This is going to deliver a follow-up strike that counts as brutal attack damage, but it deals more brutal attack damage. And then I'm just having the extra basic of everything for the blowback, which deals damage to enemies when performing a brain guard, which is a perfect guard. And just all this right in here, it's perfect if you're doing your perfect blocks. This should come right after. You're not going to be dodging that much with this build, but sometimes if you do, it's very useful to have this stuff right in here. Now, for this to actually work, you have to be very mindful on the stamina that the enemy has. Essentially, the combination that we're doing in here for you to be able to deal the maximum amount of damage possible is going to be a Gale, which is going to injure the enemy every time that you deal damage to him. You're going to gain stacks, and then you're going to follow up with Ruthless. After you follow up with that Ruthless, that is going to increase all the way to the maximum, to those 10 stacks, while dealing damage as well. And then you're going to finish that up with a Flash Kata. Remember that is going to deal more damage than a basic brutal attack. But the problem is in here that for you to be able to manage this, it's not going to be enough time. So you have to start this combo. The enemy needs to enter into exhaustion while you're on mid combo right in here. So as you can see, the enemy is still not completely exhausted, and when we deal the combo while mid combo, that's when the enemy gets exhausted. Because if you start this the Gale at the very specific moment that the enemy is exhausted, you're not going to have enough time and you're going to lose your window for the Flash Kata. As a matter of fact, more often than not, the enemy needs to have a decent amount of stamina before you actually start doing this, so you have to manage it to some extent. So the actual Ruthless, that's what it needs to stagger the enemy, but sometimes it's tricky because if you're fighting something that is very movable, he's not going to allow you to do so, but this is the maximum damage that you can reach in here with this guy. And thus, just basically the build. For regular exploration or regular basic attacks, you always have damage increase on your basic attacks, and then you also have a damage increase with your Howling Blades, so that you can be using your Howling Blades and your basic attacks to deal damage. But then also, if you actually don't feel like you didn't actually properly manage to make the enemy enter into that stance, you can just let that Ruthless fly. It's going to be more than enough for you to do the Gale and then the Ruthless, and there's going to be enough time for you to finish up with a brutal attack. It's not going to deal as much damage as with the combination for Flash Kata, but it's still going to be amazing damage that you are going to furthermore increase because you have the 10 stacks into the injured enemy because of the Ruthless and the Gale combination. All in all, it's just a very, very powerful build that you can use for the entire rendition of the game, and that you can quite literally craft from the very start of the game. If you like the content, you like it, very super appreciate it. And also that you're a gorgeous, beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, join the Discord. Have a beautiful day and goodbye.